An event like HYROX needs a balance of strength, power and endurance, but training for something like that can be confusing. It's fairly well understood how to train for a pure running event, for example, and it's fairly well understood how to train just for strength, but combining the two, that's when it becomes more difficult. In this video, I'll be highlighting the 8 most common training mistakes that HYROX athletes make when preparing for the event. And I'm talking from experience here. I've made many of these myself, but by the end of this video, you'll hopefully be armed with the knowledge to make your training time as effective as possible, which will lead into a better performance at HYROX. Before we dive in, please remember to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all our HYROX tips and news, and share this video as well with any friends who you know might be interested in competing. Okay, let's get started. 8 common HYROX training mistakes. HYROX is no joke. It's tough and intense, but that doesn't mean that you need to train that way every single day. Training at a consistently high intensity is difficult to recover from, doesn't efficiently build aerobic fitness, and can lead to injury and fatigue. It's common to see, for example, athletes regularly doing HYROX simulations as part of their training, which is where they perform a full HYROX or a scaled down version of the race. There is a time and place for those, but to do them too often isn't optimal. The reality is that the best way to get better at HYROX isn't to just do a full HYROX every week. There's a benefit to slow, steady aerobic work, for example, and you shouldn't always be going to complete failure on your strength-based lifts. Of course, sometimes you do need to do the hard work, but you need to be smart with your training and balance things appropriately. When you run, your body is subjected to a ton of force with every stride. It's a very common mistake for someone to try and do too much running too soon and end up injured as a result. Running is obviously an important part of HYROX training, but your running mileage and intensity needs to be gradually increased over time to help minimise injury risk. This is one reason why it's important to follow a training plan designed for you and your existing capabilities. If a newcomer who hasn't done much running in the past tries to do the same training program as an experienced long distance runner, they have a high risk of injuring themselves. You need to start at your own level, increase gradually, and your body will thank you for it. Another common mistake made by athletes when first coming into HYROX is that they'll try to take their existing training program, say a running focused one, and then add a strength program on top of it. But for your average person, that's not possible. You can't take 100% of one plan, add 100% of another plan and expect to train at 200%. At least you can't without it getting injured or exhausted. The demands need to be balanced. How that's done can be somewhat of a fine art, but very much comes down to figuring out what you need the most, whether it's more running work, more strength work, or something else entirely. One important factor to appreciate here is it's much easier to maintain fitness and strength than it is to improve it. So if you're a superstar runner, for example, who needs to build up your strength, it might be time to dial back on your running volume and intensity and focus on maintenance. That way you can give more time and energy to the strength work without overly exhausting yourself. If you don't know and practice the movement standards for HYROX, it can hurt you on race day. No reps from incorrect technique will cost you time and energy. It would be a mistake to fail to practice this in training. In particular, make sure you know and comply with the technique on burpee broad jumps and wall balls. If possible, film yourself doing them and critique your form afterwards, and have an experienced HYROX competitor do the same. If you notice problems when watching them back, you can then spend time in training working to correct it. You don't have that luxury if you leave it up to a judge to tell you on race day. Many newcomers to HYROX are often surprised by how heavy the sleds feel. You need to push and pull them across the dreaded HYROX carpet, which adds a significant resistance to the movement. It would be a mistake to assume the stated weight in your gym will feel the same at HYROX, and many people have ruined their race by doing so. Therefore, training with a heavier weight makes sense for most athletes. While it's important to train for the specific movements performed in HYROX, it's also a common mistake to only focus on those movements and neglect other exercises that can carry over well to the event. This can mean that a lot of training time and energy is wasted. For example, by training squats, you can help develop in particular your abilities on the sled push, lunges, burpee broad jumps, rowing and wall balls. Of course, some exercises might carry over more effectively to areas of HYROX than others, and I'm certainly not saying that you don't ever need to train the HYROX movements, but by identifying where some exercises do carry over, you can make your training time as effective as possible. If you do think you might need some help with your training over and above what's in this video, then check out our personalised coaching plans over at roxlife.com/coaching. In HYROX, you'll find that there's a noticeable difference in running when feeling completely fresh and running straight after 100 metres of walking lunges, for example. This type of running is known as compromise running. It can very much impact the speed at which you're able to run. It's not just running that will be compromised though. Everything, with the exception of the first kilometre, is compromised to some extent. As a quite clear example, there's a huge difference between doing 100 wall balls feeling completely fresh and 100 wall balls at the end of the race. If you only trained wall balls when you were feeling good, you wouldn't be fully prepared for what you'd face in the race. Failure to dedicate any of your training time to compromise training is a common mistake. To read more on this important topic, check out our article on compromise running over on roxlife.com. Training for HYROX can be hard work and you often end up burning through a lot of calories. If you aren't eating enough of the right foods, then you can underperform and end up feeling very fatigued. I do nutrition calls with HYROX athletes to help improve their performance, and one very common problem I see is people taking on nowhere near enough calories, especially from carbohydrates, for their level of activity. Many are then relying on tons of coffee through the day for energy or struggling to progress in their training. Underfueling is a huge but very common mistake. Most people don't need to eat like a bodybuilder for HYROX, they need to eat like an athlete. If you think you need more help on the nutrition side of things, check out roxlife.com/nutrition after this video. So that's it, 8 common HYROX training mistakes. Hopefully this video has been useful. Please give it a like and subscribe to our channel and check out the other HYROX related videos that we've got up. Good luck in your training and for your next event, and I will talk to you again soon.